Hello. Hello, hello. So, this is an impromptu live that I was not intending on doing, but I think it's an important conversation to have. I don't know if I've specifically talked about this before. I don't think I have. I think I've spoken on the issues, but I've not spoken on them from this perspective. But something interesting is happening, and I didn't really know this until actually Mr. told me. But I noticed that several female YouTubers. It started with Sin, and then I saw I Am Eloho, and then I saw several other female YouTubers discussing wearing bonnets in public. This live is not about wearing bonnets in public, y'all, so don't get excited. It's not about that. But what was in the comment section is what surprised me. And there was one individual I talked to you in the comment section. Should you hear this video is not because of you, dear, at all. It's not. Um, but what was surprising is so many women in the comment sections were actually coming for these female YouTubers who are on their side. Like they talk Black female so called empowerment all day, every day. They speak of nothing but uplifting Black women. But the minute they tried to say, okay, well, some things are inappropriate, maybe don't do this, maybe this isn't something we should support as a collective, so many Black women were in the comment section basically saying Black women shouldn't be policed. No matter what we do, we'll never be good enough. So basically, why even try? We might as well do what we want. And this kind of was triggering to me because it brought up something that I notice in predominantly Black female spaces. Okay. And that is that there is an idea that Black women are infallible, just infallible. This is not about bonnets. This is so far beyond bonnets. I'm about to bring up a bunch of examples that I have noticed where Black women are just infallible. They're just without fault. They can just do nothing wrong. Apparently, Black women are just walking around in their ultimate level of perfection, being dogged out by the world, just perfect. Just out here floating around like angels, beautiful, infallible, flawless creatures that the world is not appreciating. And this is disgusting, quite frankly. So let's just talk about, we're going to start with bonnets. Not that I care about bonnets, but we're going to start with bonnets. And then we're going to use a bunch of examples of how Black women get together in a feeding frenzy and do things that are counterproductive to our collective progress. We've reached a point now where you cannot say anything to Black women. You cannot tell them anything is wrong with them. Because whatever the problem is, if there's joint responsibility, the responsibility will always fall to the person who has more responsibility, and Black women will be absolved completely. So let's have this discussion. Okay, we're going to start with bonnets. And I think the second thing I want to talk about is raising children. Okay, we're just going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it, right? So, bonnets. Obviously, I don't believe in wearing bonnets in public. I just don't. I don't. There's a lot of stuff I don't believe in wearing in public. But obviously people can do what they want, but I think we should have standards. I think we should have standards for how we present ourselves. I think we should stay ready. Now, some people live the type of life where it doesn't matter. You have nothing going for yourself. It doesn't matter who you meet. You don't care. Maybe, you smoked 5 blunts, got drunk, and then just rolled out. So it doesn't matter if you wear a bonnet. Other people have lives where there are standards for their life, where they have children or young adults looking up to them and they carry themselves differently. We all have different standards, right? We all have different standards. Me, myself, I personally like to look presentable when I go out. This is because I personally don't feel comfortable not looking presentable, but also because there is a level of protection in that. There's a level of protection as a woman to present feminine. Just keeping it real. You go out there with your butt crack out. Yes, I've seen women out with their butt crack out, looking sloppy, dirty, unkempt. You go out there, and I'm not saying everybody with bonnets looks like this. I'm just saying if you look that way, or you go out with a bonnet on your head because, I don't know, you couldn't wear a hat, you couldn't wear a head wrap, You couldn't put your hair in a ponytail, a bun. There's just no other effort you could possibly put into yourself but to look the way you looked when you rolled out of bed. And I don't want to hear about all the white people who do it and what white women do. Look, they're not our standard. I'm talking about our standard for ourselves as Black women. There is a protection in presenting in the feminine. You're going to have a lot less hassle. I'm not saying you can avoid all the problems of the world by keeping yourself up. I'm just saying you avoid a lot of problems by keeping yourself up. If I walk into a store with dark glasses, a hoodie, pea stained pants, and holes in my shoes, I'm going to have a lot more problems than if I go in there put together correctly. That doesn't mean I won't have any problems at all. That just means the likelihood is diminished. Also, we have a collective image. A collective image. And whether we like it or not, perception is reality. Whether we like it or not. Black people don't live in a bubble. Black women don't live in a bubble. The perception of us is created by the behavior of individuals. So while people can do what they want, the way we maneuver in society determines how we are perceived. Whether that is fair or not, it doesn't matter. I don't want to stay on the bonnet issue. I just think, you know what? You should have standards for your physical appearance. This just goes for everything. All right? This just goes for everything. Comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your butt, put on some clean clothes, iron your clothes, steam your clothes, do something. This is just general basic hygiene. But I want to move on to other things where Black women are infallible. Like, you cannot tell Black women anything. Some Black women, if you're not telling them that what their shit doesn't stink, they're not really trying to hear you. If you're not telling them that they're perfection, that they've done nothing wrong, they're not trying to hear you. And I don't want people saying, well, Black women are policed so much. I'm so sick of hearing that. Okay, Black women are policed. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have standards and you're not accountable for anything. That's not the equivalent. We don't jump from Black women are policed too much to you can't tell me anything. There is a middle ground. I know you guys say I ride the fence, but that's because some of these polarized conversations are stupid. Okay? It's not one thing or the other. It's not you're absolutely perfect or you're completely being policed. There is a middle ground. And people can call that fence riding if you're not. I call that having a brain. You know what I'm saying? So let's bring up another topic that really actually upsets me, and that is parenting. Parenting. And let me pick the most triggering parenting, because we could talk about Black girls being raised by Black women, because most Black families are like I was just looking at the stats with Mr. today. Realistically speaking, around I think it's like 44% of Black families have two parents in them, right? If you count married, the majority of those are married. If you count married and unmarried, it's like 47% of Black families have either a married couple or two parents, biological parents in the home. Okay? This is according to the US Census. I literally was just looking at these stats yesterday. Around 49% of Black families are mother-only families. And believe it or not, 8% of our children don't live with either parent. They just don't live with either parent at all. And then the remainder live with father only. And the father only stats are pretty much equivalent to every other group. Why am I bringing this up? Because sometimes you will hear people say, if Black boys are turning out badly, they're being raised by their mothers. Therefore, the mothers are responsible. Now, I have a problem with this because obviously a lack of a father in the home is responsible for part of the problem. It is. Like, if a father's not even there, just because you dip out or because you don't participate with your child doesn't mean you're not culpable for how that child turns out. Your absence has an effect. But what I don't like is when Black women try to act like because the father's not there, that the person that is in the home doesn't have a huge part to do with how these little boys and little girls come out. The parent that is not there definitely plays a role in how the child turns out. But guess what? The parent who's there every single day has a huge, 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 dare I say, greater influence on the child. So, yes, Black mothers who are raising children alone have the lion's share responsibility for how their sons and daughters turn out. But you can't say that to Black women because we're infallible, right? We're beyond reproach. We're just perfection. The fact that we're there in a house with children every single solitary day does not make us responsible for how they turn out in the minds of many Black women. And you know what's really scary about this is because if we harnessed our power as mothers, even if you had a father in the home, most of the time in most families with children, it's going to be spent with the mother. Mothers have so much influence and power over their children. But because we're always so busy trying to pass the buck, because we're infallible, we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. We cannot say that fathers not being in the home plays a huge part in how children turn out, especially boys, because a woman can never actually teach a boy how to be a man. However, that does not absolve moms of their responsibility because you're there every single day. So you have the most impact because you are there every day in that child's face, capable of laying foundational work. But you cannot say that again because so many Black women will act like it's nothing that they possibly ever did wrong. I know a mother right now who literally had a son who did not turn out well. And when she and I talk, she says, basically, I did everything right. I just don't know why he's like that. And as a mother of many, as my kids like to joke, there's not one thing going on in my house with my kids. I don't know where that came from. I'm not looking up like, dang, how did that happen? How'd you turn? I'm not doing that. I can see where I dropped the ball checking little habits. I can see where I might have instilled something or failed to have. And as a mother, I self-correct because my goal is to produce the best person possible. My goal is not to run up in somebody else's face and talk about what they didn't do. This is not to absolve anybody of their responsibility, but for us to act as women as we just have no dealings with that, this has nothing to do with us. It's stupid. Like I said, you can't tell some Black women anything. If you're not constantly telling them that the problem has nothing to do with them, because that's what a lot of people want to hear, both men and women. A lot of you guys want to hear. That's why a lot of people didn't like my video, Are Black Men a Lost Cause? Because you don't want to hear about yourself, right? You don't want to hear that you might be a problem. But Black women, we're no better. A lot of us don't want to hear that we have a problem. All we want to hear is that we want to hear everything about what the next person did wrong. And there's room for us to talk about the other side. But when do we stop and take a step back and also talk about ourselves? Because let me keep it real. My personal goal is that we actually get better as a collective. And that certainly won't work if the only thing we can ever possibly do is talk trash about the next group. What about you? Well, so what? You're not responsible at all for how your kids come out. You don't have to be presentable in public. Nobody can police you. Nobody can tell you anything. This is what we're going to be. This is how we're going to act. When it comes to male-female relationships, let me guess, every Black woman just brings 100% perfection to the table and the Black men are just trash. We have nothing to do with the relationship problems. Just nothing. If a relationship fails, it's not because a Black woman might have done anything wrong. It's 130% the man's fault, right? You didn't misstep anywhere. You were just the walking epitome of all perfection and glory, and that man was just trash, right? That's what it is. Correct? Am I right? Tell me I'm correct, right? You didn't do anything. Your eyeball didn't even twitch wrong. Just perfection. Perfect. Now, I'm not saying there aren't relationships where one person is a bigger problem than the other. But for us to act like there's just millions upon millions of Black women that are moving in ultimate perfection, and I say the same thing for the Black men. Sometimes I go to these Black men channel and the Black men are just talking like Black men are just the perfection and just the Black women. But the Black men, we're just walking around here just all great and glorious and fabulous, and we never do anything wrong. But Black women are no better. It's just a bunch of people pretending like they didn't do anything wrong. So if everybody's perfect, what's the problem? Since we're all so freaking perfect out here. Can't tell you nothing. You can wear bunny slippers, sweatpants, a bonnet, curse your kid out, go to the club rather than stay home and play Uno with your baby. You can bring every man that sparks your interest into your bed and have sex with your kids in the house, but you're perfect. Am I saying this is all Black women? No, but I'm saying don't play stupid like you guys don't know this is some Black women. Because y'all, I was definitely in the airport and I went live in the airport because I was tight that a Black woman was in the airport with 3 little boys, dirty, in freaking pajamas at the airport. She looks like she has not brushed her hair in 15 years. Disheveled, dirty, yelling, cursing them out, just out of control situation. And I was just like, this shit is incredible. Like, I can't do this. We're going to act like we didn't see that mom. We've never met her. She just doesn't exist. We don't know this woman. She's just an invisible person. And if you say anything, you're just trying to police Black women and you're anti-Black women and you don't like Black women and you're a mammy and you're a mule and da 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 da, right? We're not going to act like any of this is true. We've never met a Black woman where we were like, well, damn, she's off. This is she's a rare bird, right? We might see her 1 in every 500,000 Black women is this woman. So that's why we never talk about her. Right? 1 in every 500,000 Black women. That's why we're not talking about it. Every Black woman brought her 10,000% A game to parenting. Just A game. Left, right. She's making clothes. She's cooking every meal from scratch. She didn't scrub the house from ceiling all up in the grout. She spends 15 hours every day just trying to get into her kid's head about how school's going. She sits down for 2 hours a night and just works through all the math problems and vocabulary with her. Her child is getting straight freaking A's. She's working 5 jobs. We're infallible. I didn't drop the ball on any of that. She's a whole freaking nun out here, won't even look at a man because her priority is her kids, right? Just infallible. Infallible. She didn't tell him that because they're not flexing like that and she doesn't like his new girlfriend, her baby isn't about to come over his house. We don't know any Black women like that. I've never met that Black woman. I've never met the Black woman who told that man he couldn't see his kid. Now, don't get me wrong. I couldn't be a man because let you tell me I can't see my kid. It's about to be World War III. But naturally, all of us Black women are priority because we are so mindful about who we produce children with. Our priority is that our kids have relationships with their father. So we have absolutely never met the Black woman who's literally just withheld a child because to them, a child is just theirs and a pawn to be juggled depending upon how they're feeling about the father at the time. We've never heard of this before. Again, I'm not saying Black men are perfect because they're not. we know there are a bunch of men who don't even care to see their kids. You could try to get them to see their kids and they would never show up. But that's not the conversation, right? Because we always have conversations about what the other side did wrong. But I was so shocked and appalled the minute somebody told y'all not to wear a bonnet in public, you guys were coming for everybody. All these Black female YouTubers who do not have channels like mine. Because, on Irene Yvette's channel, we all can get it. The Black men are going to get that work. The Black women are going to get that work. We are all going to get it over here. We're going to be honest about everybody on my channel. But I was watching Black women on channels where these women don't do anything but let you know what it is about Black men. These women don't do anything but speak highly of Black women. And the way these Black women, the way y'all were turning on these young ladies, the way you guys were turning on these women just for telling you not to wear a bonnet in public. Well, I'm going to do what I want. Well, we're policed enough. Well, we can never do anything right. I'm sick of people telling us how we're to present. All over a freaking bonnet, we can't even get into any real discussions about all the other shenanigans Black women get up to because you guys can't be told anything. It's just apparently we can't have standards. And I'm going to tell you something. The problem with Black women not allowing any standard to apply to them, just I'm not culpable for anything. The only bad thing I did was talk to you. That's the Black woman's attitude. The only thing I ever did wrong was give you the time of day. What have you done wrong outside of that? Nothing. Outside of that, I'm freaking perfect. I'm perfection. The only thing I did wrong was not recognizing that you weren't perfect too. That's a lot of Black women's attitude. But here's the problem. You invalidate every single valid point anybody makes when you act like your shit doesn't stink. You invalidate every valid argument about absentee fathers, about deadbeat dads, about male culpability in reproduction, about relationships, about the importance of fathers with their sons, about how Black women's bodies are policed, how our hair is policed. You invalidate it all when you act like you can't be told anything. I can't say anything to you. I can't tell you to brush your funky teeth and to gargle so I don't have to smell your stank breath. I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you that maybe you don't need that third cheeseburger. I can't tell you that if your child is out of control, then you need to fall back from the club and shopping and watching freaking Real Housewives of Atlanta and start to parent your baby. I can't tell you anything. Right? I can't tell you crap. I can't tell you to exercise. I can't tell you that maybe you may not like that man, but you let your child have the opportunity to know his father. I can't say anything to you. I can't say anything on your behalf because you're never wrong. The only thing you want to hear is the truth about how other people are wrong. But as far as you're concerned, you're perfect. And it invalidates all of our points. It invalidates all of our points. It invalidates all of our points. All of the real points Black women have about relationships, about how we're treated in society, about how our bodies are policed, about how we're not just allowed to live. We just can't freaking live out here. Just freaking breathe. About how hard it is to be single mothers or to have men that are not building and protecting. We invalidate it all when we act like there's 0% that we're responsible for. I have no responsibility in this life. I'm perfect. I just showed up perfect. I'm just trying to live my peaceful, perfective, best life. I'm just trying to be beautiful and a Black queen around here. I'm just trying to pick up the slack for you in all of my glory. And why are you even talking to me? Because you know I've never done anything wrong. You know I don't move funny ever. You know I never talk reckless. Not unless you have it coming. I've never just been reckless for the sake of recklessness. Not I. Not you, not flipping you. And you know what makes me hot is that you know it's a problem. That's the only reason I did this live, y'all. You know it's a problem because when you are on a channel of a Black woman, and this, I saw this on multiple Black women's channels. That's why I went live. I was like, how are you on a whole channel that all this woman does is talk positive about Black women? Just big old glitter covered cape flapping in the freaking wind for Black women. But the minute this woman says anything to you about self accountability and presentation, you're like, I've been policed. I've been, I've been, like, no, really? Even the people who cape for you the hardest can't tell you that your shit stinks. We're just not allowed to say anything. It makes us look bad. I don't care what anybody thinks. And then really? Maybe that's the problem. You don't care what anybody thinks. Maybe you should start to care. We're not in high school. Opinions matter, okay? You're not in a freaking bubble. We live in a society. Opinions matter. This is beyond, like I said, this is beyond the bonnet. It's beyond the bonnet for me. It's all of it. It's all of the arguments. Y'all name an argument Black women make, and I will show you how overwhelmingly we're very one-sided about it. We're very one-sided about it. And the thing is, it's a lose-lose-lose situation across the board. We don't win. We don't win by acting like we're infallible. Black women, we don't win by acting like we're perfection walking. We don't win. That does not make us the winner. Depending on how you define win. If the way you define win is that you remain screwed up and nothing gets solved, then I guess you win. But if the way you define win is that our children have a safer environment to grow up in, that we can mend these families, that when our daughters and sons get married, they don't end up in the same dysfunctional situation we do, then we don't win by acting like we have no culpability in anything. We don't win by pretending like we just have no responsibility. There's just nothing we can do. If only Black men got it together. If only white supremacy wasn't this. If only, we don't win that way. Because guess what? Some of this shit is you. Some of it's you. Some of it's you and your complete and utter refusal to be told that anything about you should change. The only thing you think you should change is staying away from their trifling asses, right? The only thing you need to change is recognizing a trifling person when you see one. What if you're the trifling person? Some of y'all are trifling. Hell, I've been trifling from time to time. You don't know about that life? You've never done anything wrong. Just every situation, you're just 10,000% legit. There's absolutely nothing in any sector of your life you could fix or should have fixed or have fixed because you just came out the womb in ultimate perfection and you just navigate through the world like a freaking genie just popping out the bottle, just granting wishes left and right. But people just keep taking advantage of your perfection. People just keep abusing the artifact. I'm just trying to hear it. I just want to know. I just want to know. Here's the thing. I'm not going to stay up here long. I'm really not. Well, I don't know. Look, I'll put the link. Y'all can come up. Come up and feel free to, come up and feel free to disagree. Feel free to disagree. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my problem is I'm not fully appreciating the perfection that we are. There should be no standards for us because we're above all standards. You guys know that I love and respect women. I do. I talk about how the womb is a precious thing. I talk about how the women who carry wombs should be revered. But some of y'all are a disgrace to your ovaries. Can we be real about that too? It's a shame. It's a shame for you to be so gloriously made, for you to be the purveyor of all human life and not know how to carry yourself. But, it's not like it doesn't happen. I'm not going to sit here and act like just because you have a vagina, you're suddenly just a wonderful person. Well, Octavia 680, if I'm missing the point, come up. That's why I said, come up. Come up. If I'm missing the point and you guys think that I'm misunderstanding something, I think I understand it quite clearly, to be honest. But if you think I'm missing the point, if you think I'm off base here and I should not say what I'm saying, then feel free to come up and we can dialogue. But I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to be a hard sell. Oh, good. Come up, Octavia. Hey, girl.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. This conversation has went so off the rails, and I know there are a lot of opinions going around, but I just want to share what my take on it is. And I want to first say I'm not advocating for anybody stepping out their home wearing a bonnet or pajama pants or anything of that nature. I don't like it either. But I don't particularly think it's about the bonnet. It's bigger than that. And my issue with it is Black women, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. And you mentioned that our bodies are picked apart from head to toe consistently. And if it's not the bonnet, it's the box braids, it's the natural hair, it's the lace fronts. You're too light, you're too dark, your butt's too big. It's consistently nonstop. And this is the bonnet is just the latest of a culmination of things that Black women have constantly had to fight against or fight up against. I don't think there's anything a Black woman can do to satisfy or to make everybody comfortable around them. It's something about our personhood that's always going to make someone else uncomfortable. And we could be walking in perfection. Somebody is going to have a problem with it. And so I guess my issue is it's why even go with all of that? And I have to be honest, I don't think that we're walking out of our house every day being bombarded with Black women in bonnets and pajama pants. It's just not an epidemic. It's a one-off. You may see it here and there. And I don't believe that it needs to be so polarized until we have to have all of these panel discussions and reaction videos about it. It's not that big of a deal. I have, on occasion, worn a bonnet and some jogging pants, sweats outside the house, and it was for the purpose of me rolling out of the bed because it was my first day of my period, and I'm cramped and I'm irritable and I look ugly and I feel ugly, but I need to go to Walgreens to get myself some more Midol because I ran out. So yeah, I rolled out the bed, went to Walgreens, and came right back on home. If I were to be seen by somebody, they would have an immediate classification of me, and in that moment, they would deem me as less than or ghetto or whatever the case may be, not knowing nothing about me or anything else. And I would hope a Black woman wouldn't do that, but I guess we are. So
Yeah.
that's my stance on this, and it's just really
Hmm.
it's really frustrating because not like I said, I don't like to see that, but I also don't like to see pants hanging down off a man's ass and his crack is showing. I also don't like to see white women wearing box braids and all of these other things, carbon copies of black women. And when it boils down to is um, when we walk out, shared it's this shared secondhand embarrassment that black women are feeling when they see another black woman that is not representing in the way that they feel like they should.
Right. So I'm gonna comment on the bonnet, but I do want to stress I don't care about the bonnet. To me, it's a bigger issue of just infallibility in Black women. But I do think you brought up a good point that a lot of people made, which is that we are picked apart. So we could walk about imperfection and it wouldn't avoid us from being picked apart per se, right? But this is what I'll say. That we know that there are exceptions to the rule. You said I've had to, I was in pain, I had to run out and just get a Midol, right?
Mhm.
I would have thrown on a hat or a head wrap, me personally. I wouldn't have wore a bonnet. That's me personally. But even if I did, that would be an exception to the rule. We know that's not the case that most women are doing this. Like a lot of people are just comfortable moving about society that way. But this is beyond that. Simply because we're picked apart from head to toe doesn't mean that we aren't allowed to have conversations about standards. If our argument is that no matter what standard we set, we will be devoured anyway, therefore there should be no standards. I mean, what kind of argument is that? You
I'm
know?
not saying there shouldn't be any standards. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any standards.
No,
But the thing,
I'm not saying you
yes,
are, but I'm saying I've heard that argument. But the thing is, at some point we have to say like, okay, we understand a unique situation, right? But a unique situation and us simply saying, well, we're going to be picked apart anyway, so I might as well wear a bonnet. That means I'm refusing standards. I'm not saying that's the point you're making, but if that argument's made, that's I'm refusing standards because no standard will be good enough. And I've definitely heard that parroted many times on
well
multiple channels. And I think that is problematic. We can agree that a
that
bonnet is for inside the house and that there are exceptions. Maybe your child is sick, you're running to the emergency room. Me personally, with CPS and being Black and all that, I'm about to throw myself together for any situation. Right. So even if my child was sick and I had to take them to the emergency room or something serious was going on, that's all the more reason I'm going to put myself together. Because the more ghetto and disheveled you look, the more they're going to be willing to try you. That doesn't mean you won't get tried, but we know when we present a certain way, that makes people more comfortable with trying us. We know our presentation as Black people, and I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it's reality, especially as women, right? But for the men as well, that our presentation is 9/10 of the battle. That doesn't mean you're going to avoid everything, but I guarantee you, somebody in a pair of bunny slippers and, a pair of pajamas that have, sauce all over them because they were making their kids dinner and a bonnet is going to be more at risk for a level of discrimination than somebody who just put on, a nice, comfortable, sweatsuit, a cute little hat or head wrap and washed their face and walked out the door. So we can minimize that impact. Now, and it's also just a matter of carrying yourself right. Me personally, I know Mr. gets mad at me because I don't go anywhere without putting myself together to some level because that's how I was raised. But I don't want to make it about the bonnet because, like I said, Octavia, it reaches past the bonnet, right?
it does,
It
and
reaches
you
past it
brought
to
up,
other areas, right? Like
but
raising our kids and all where we pass the buck and say everything around us is so unfair and we are really incapable of doing wrong.
no, but see, you brought up something. You said, um, no, uh, you're more likely to have someone try you, or you be put in a discriminatory box if you look like A, B, C, D. And my thing is, if okay, I don't care. I know we live in a society that we're the minority in the dominant society, blah blah blah. But I don't care what white people think, because they don't care about what we think when they come out the house doing whatever, because they do just as much as ghetto, trashy, hood booger stuff as you see some black women do. And I think we subjugate ourselves when we care so much about how we present ourselves, whether we are walking in perfection or in a bonnet and slippers. We care so much about what their comfort level is or how they perceive us in that moment
Okay,
that we let go of our own comforts and stability.
let me ask you something. Okay. So we're talking about physical appearance, but I really want to stress for me, this is beyond physical appearance. This is our attitudes about many things as women that we do, whether it be motherhood, whether it be our interactions with other people, our interactions in relationships. This is bigger than physical appearance to me. Like, and I started off this conversation by going into a variety of things where we always argue infallibility when we have culpability in those things. But let's talk about physical appearance, okay? Now, I want to remove white people and I just want to think, let us think about from a place of leadership, okay? So, when you see somebody who drives up in a fire truck, gets out with a fireman's uniform on, what do you think to yourself? That's fireman, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you see somebody in a police uniform or a judge's uniform, you think to yourself, oh, that's a police officer and a judge. And most of us will act accordingly, right? When we
Mm-hmm.
when we are in an establishment, for example, sometimes you can pick out who the manager is by how they're dressed. Maybe everybody, let's say at a restaurant, is in a uniform, and then you see somebody in a suit. They seem to be giving orders. They seem polished. You think, okay, that might be the owner. That might be the manager.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of our blackness, right? Outside of any of that, the way we carry ourselves, this is just a reality of being a human being, has a great deal to do with how we are perceived and how people relate to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a fact. And when we speak about from the place that we are in society, which is we're at the bottom of the barrel of society, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that we are more vulnerable in general. But as we elevate collectively as a people, something we have to understand in our vie for power, right? In this race that we're in for dominance and power and social influence, is that our collective image does affect our movement up the totem pole. Most people that we see who are white, and I'm not saying this is right, but we know this is social conditioning. We see a
Mhm.
white person, they look somewhat polished. Most black people view them as authority. And I know y'all are going to go crazy in the chat. I don't view them as authority, da da da, whatever. We know
No,
the
you're
real
right.
world. We know
Go
the,
ahead.
in the chat, there's always somebody out there lying like they don't fall into the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
We view them that way. How did they get to a point that any random white person who we know nothing about can present a certain way and we all automatically view them as authority? Or if a well-spoken white person speaks on a topic, we are willing to believe that they are actually in a position to speak with authority.
Mm,
That comes from social conditioning. And
mm,
that social conditioning, part of that is the visual. And that's
mm.
like a bigger, that's like a bigger issue. So when we talk about everything you're saying is right, Octavia, I don't disagree with it, except for
I
in
think
one point, which is that it's bigger than bonnets. It's bigger than white people. It's about collectively how we move in society and also not ever being so downtrodden that we ever feel. And I know this is not your point, but I know this is a point that many people made that kind of ran along the vein of the point that you made, but they took it further,
Mm-hmm.
which is that we're so downtrodden and we're so mistreated and nothing we do can be right. So I'm not about to adjust anything. I'm going to move however I want to move out here because at the end of the
mm,
day, you don't respect me anyway. But that's a very destructive and defeatist attitude to have, in my
yeah.
opinion. What are your thoughts? And then Armadeus, I'll bring you in. I apologize.
Okay. I to say I know this is this isn't my argument, but I know this is the argument that you've heard people say, where they say, well, why should I try it all if we all get picked apart? My my stance is we get picked apart um, for whatever we do. Like I said, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. What I want Black people to understand is um, we don't have to go by the standards of white society, because like you said, if you see a white person with a suit and authority, we adjust ourselves accordingly. When we dress in a suit and we're out there representing our best selves, it doesn't matter. We're still put along some according to them, along the same barriers, along the same lines. We don't
Yeah.
have to keep that mentality.
Well, I agree with that, but then why wouldn't our pushback be being able to wear clothes that are traditional for our people, being able to wear our natural hair, being able to wear our head wraps and have that being normalized? Why would the pushback be for us to look disheveled and be able to go outside in what we wear
No,
to bed?
the
Do you know what
pushback
I
should
mean?
be for all of that,
Well,
and
I don't
that's
think
my
the
point.
pushback should be to lower the standard of appearance, right? The pushback should be for us to stand. The pushback should be that we have a unique culture and we should be able to have our culture be normalized. And if
And
there's
we
going to be,
should.
and this brings me to a thing about cultural appropriation. We appropriate white culture all the time because most
Mm-hmm.
of the clothing we wear, the style of clothing we wear, the hairstyles we find acceptable, the way we wear our makeup is European, whether we realize it or not. The thing is, Europeans want us to appropriate their culture because it delimits our culture, right? So when we wear their hairstyles, we wear dresses, like, the sundresses and things like that. A lot of the clothing that we wear, the suits that we wear are European in origin. It stems from the way that they dress. There are many other types of clothing on the planet. We just don't wear those clothings because they want us to appropriate their culture, because they want us to emulate whiteness. So if
They
I were
want
going to
us to
push for a
want what they
standard,
have. They want you
yeah,
to
they have.
want
No, you're right. They
what they
have.
have and who they are. And that's what
Right.
we have to push back on,
I would agree, but I
especially with
wouldn't say with a freaking
appropriation.
bonnet though. That's the only thing I'm saying.
That's
Like
the
I'm
thing.
not talking about with pajamas and a bonnet though. I would be talking
I
about
don't.
with other things. So I think you make
I
a good
don't.
point, but I
Right. I
think
don't think it. I
with
think it's
other
bigger than
things,
a
yeah.
bonnet, and I think we're making too much of an issue of the bonnet. That's
Well,
my
that's
thing.
why I said let's move it to another place. So let's
And
talk about
one more
okay, go
right.
ahead.
One more point, and then I'm good. One more point is, um, I really like the spaces of the Black women that I follow here on YouTube, but I don't think that we should all be an echo chamber.
Hmm.
So if I don't agree with something you say, and it's been often, but not too many. If I don't agree with something that Nyla or Cynthia, you young ladies are who I follow, I don't think I should be persecuted for not being an echo chamber for
Oh no, 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 no,
what
no,
your
no.
talk
No,
beliefs
not at
are.
all. No.
And but that's how I'm feeling. That's how it's been being put
Wait, is that
out.
how you feel right now?
When I first came into the chat, yeah,
Oh, when you came into the chat? Okay, but not by me or just in general?
in general.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, and everybody knows this on this channel, I don't want you to feel that way. I encourage opposite points of views because we cannot have a conversation if we're all just basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's just that's my point. I want it, and I know that a lot of people have different opinions, and sometimes those opinions are just regurgitating talking points. But some of those opinions have some valid points, and you got to be able to have the honest dialogue about it to get to the root of it, and find a commonality, because it's not it doesn't have to be one way or the other, because we're not two dimensional. We're not one dimensional.
I agree. I definitely agree. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. I do agree also if we think from a place of establishing a society than we do create social standards. We've never been in a position as Black people to create our own social standards, but we do also
No.
have to think from a place of power and keep in mind when we are creating social standards for ourselves what that looks like and to know
Mm-hmm.
that that's okay as well. I wanted to touch on what Melanated was saying, and then Sunray, I'll let you speak because I know Octavia and I have been speaking a lot. I'm not talking about wearing blush or mascara, dear. I was talking about the style of makeup. Makeup is worn differently in different parts of the world, right? The style, the way that we wear our makeup is very Eurocentric. But there are many ways that women do makeup throughout the world. So when I was speaking to Octavia and I mentioned makeup, I was saying not that makeup in and of itself is European. I was saying the style of makeup we wear that is preferred in the Western world is a European makeup and it fluctuates, right, with their trends. So when they decided all eyebrows needed to be picked basically clean and drawn on, that's what we did. That was an old style from the flapper days. Now they've decided because they're more hairy that they want to go back to not having to pluck their eyebrows as much for the more full eyebrow. For a lot of Black people who have no admixture, this is difficult because we don't grow as much hair, right? So we've compensated for that by filling our eyebrows in a lot. I'm not saying makeup is European. I'm saying the style of makeup is. And I would encourage people to explore the many ways that many cultures wear makeup and experiment with other ways. That's kind of the pushback Octavia was speaking toward, which is
Mm-hmm.
presenting something as acceptable that is not Eurocentric to normalize doing something outside of the norm so that we don't have to do our hair a certain way, wear certain clothes, wear our makeup a certain way, that there are other ways to look kept other than the status quo. I definitely agree with her on that. I'm just saying we don't know a lot of other ways that aren't Eurocentric, right? Most of the things we emulate are Eurocentric in nature. And that does create pushback, like for our hairstyles, what's kept and unkept with natural hair, us laying our edges when a lot of our edges don't naturally lay. Why is that considered more neat and more acceptable, right? The not wanting frizz, right? Even though our hair is kind of naturally frizzy, but we have like an anti frizz. We're always trying to tame that frizz. These are all because we have a Eurocentric starting point for beauty standards. But I also want to say, and I'm sorry, Sunray, I know I said it, let you speak. I also want to say this is bigger than how we look. That's why I brought up also parenting and how Black women collectively, I've seen a lot of conversations where we're not culpable in parenting. We'll say because, as I was speaking to those stats earlier, there's, around 50% of Black homes where there is no father in the home. Sadly, 8% where there's neither parent in the home. But about 50%, 47%, I think it is, where there are no fathers in the home, right? Not
And I think
married
that's more
and
important
not
than talking
unmarried.
about a bonnet.
Yeah, well, right. I agree with that. And that's why I said the bonnet thing to me is secondary to the bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have a lot of Black women say, well, the man is not in the home. So if a Black boy or a young girl, but mostly Black boys turn out a certain way, it's because of lack of a father. I agree with that to a point, right? Lack of a father does affect how a young boy comes out. But the woman that's in the home has a huge amount of influence over how the child comes out as well. And while we can't teach them to be full blown men, we can create good people. And so when we have generation after generation, right, of horrible Black men, so to speak, right, according to a lot of the dialogue, there is female culpability in that. We are accountable for some of that because all these kids have moms, right? Or most of these
Mm-hmm.
kids have moms. There's only like 10% of household, well, 10, 11, 12% of households where there's no mother in the household.
Mm-hmm.
So most Black children are raised around their mother. And so we definitely have something to do with how our young men and women are turning out. So if we see a decline in the population and their behavior of our young men and women, then the mothers do have culpability. And that's another area where I think, and like I said, I wanted to move away from the physical appearance where Black women say, well, it's just not us. We have
I don't
no,
believe that.
we have no culpability. And that's why I mean, like the infallible Black woman, what is the
Mm-hmm.
goal here? Is the goal for us to get better or is the goal for us to point blame? Because there's enough blame to go around. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Um, I'm so sorry, Sunray, Melanated, let me take your. Your comment off, sweetheart. Sunray, what's you've been so patient. 'Cause Octavia and I, we could probably have a whole conversation, Octavia. Um,
I mean, I can
what
go
are your
on,
thoughts, Sunray?
but I'll pause. I'll mute.
No, you're right. It's good, man. You guys are going in really good on some great talking points, and like, much peace to everybody. Much thanks to Irene, man. As you were saying just then, like, and I typed it before, like the blame, where you're going to lay the blame, but why shouldn't is the focus on laying blame or getting better? Like, it should be about getting better. And I say it's easy to lay the blame on other people. We should be focusing on stuff we can change rather than stuff that we can't. But with the points you were saying before, how you said, like, I just have a couple points in my head that I was just brainstorming over, and it's like you said that if we see a white person that's dressed in a like kind of a smart or suit and tie, as they say, or whatnot, you might feel as though they're in a position of authority, even though their level of mentality is not in that position at all. They could be completely unqualified, just not fit for that position. But we would give respect to that. And I thought, in my mind, it was in the same sense of the opposite scale, that you would find the black people that youths that are wearing their pants halfway down their bum on all this sort of jazz. Like, it's a lot of those people don't fall into that category either. Like, they're not mean killers, rough, drug dealers, type armed robbers, and that, but they want that, they fell prey to that persona, and they feel that that's their uniform, instead of, as opposed to what Irene was saying before, the traditionally cultural clothes that we had. That should be the things that we're proud to display and become normalize that, so we can bring awareness to that, because it's a generational thing, I think, too. It's been passed down through so many different generations, or 5, 6, 10 generations, that it's kind of instilled into these people's brain and their way of life. I mean, it's different for everybody. You can't, and the point where she was saying about the mothers, how 90% of these people are grown up with mothers in their home. So some onus is on there. I think that made me think that, well, single mothers that have an issue with the baby father, they might be taking it out on the child in some way, instead of
Sometimes, I'm so sorry. I'm going to let you finish, but
yeah.
we really need to address this. Ronald Raggio, that's incorrect. That's not true. And you can go to the census's website. I plan to do a whole video on this, but let's just flesh this out now. Your stats are absolutely a lie. They're a lie. In fact, about 46% of Black homes have a married male and female couple in them. 46%. And then there is an additional 3 to 4% of homes that have unmarried parents that are cohabitating in the home with their children. These are the freshest stats. They're 2019. They were released in 2019, because anything else is a projection, but they were released in 2019 on the census. I was literally just looking at this yesterday. So you're just a liar. You're a liar, or you're grossly misinformed. Okay? So we have around 50% of households that have two parents in them in the Black community. About 50% of households that are single mother only, which is nothing for us to be happy about. That's a horrific stat. And then we have a sad 8% of households, right? So it's like 47%, 46%, and then 8% of households that there's no parent, not a father or a mother in the household. And then we have a smattering of households, like a little splash of households that are father-led only, father-only households. It is not 87%. That is an absolute lie. It's a lie. It's just a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie that's easily vettable by going to the census's website, because they literally just released the statistics in 2019. Any statistics for the most recent census are not going to be out, because they have to crunch the numbers. They're only going to be projections, but that's the last firm count we had. And so you're just lying. You're lying. And I'm really getting tired of you, like, internet, Google thugs, like, just coming on here blurting out stuff you don't understand. It's just absolutely not true. I literally, if I wasn't on this device, I actually have the statistic pulled up on my computer because I was literally just looking at it last night and discussing it with my husband. Mostly that 8% stat of not having either parent in the home. So be real careful throwing around stats on my channel, right? Because I didn't do a Google search. I actually went, downloaded the spreadsheet, read through the spreadsheet, looked at the hard data, looked at the census reports that the US Census put out. I didn't do a Google search and just cough something up, and I didn't listen to somebody's YouTube video and start just vomiting up statistics. It's not 87%. It is not 87%. Let me repeat that. It is not anywhere freaking near 87%.
That's incredible. It's 9 out of 10. Like, that's just, you think about that. That's impossible, really.
It's just stupid. Like real life tells us that's not the case. But more importantly, the hard statistics tell us that's not the case. And so just the BS of it all, I can't. We're not going to do that. We're not going to just throw things around and try to make a point, especially when the things we're throwing around are literally completely inaccurate. That's not even close to accurate. Not even close to accurate. In fact, I'm sure the stats I just gave at 47%, 2 parents in the home is better than most Black people thought we were doing. Not that we should be patting ourselves on the back, because that's not the best. But I think it's better than most. And most of those are married. So just honestly, okay. I can't. But it's beside the point. The point is that, I'm sorry, Sunray, go ahead. I'm about to go on a tangent. Finish what you were saying.
No, I pretty much finished up. I mean, I'm just talking on points like, it's pretty hard. I mean, like, for people like that do, you're talking about these Google warriors or internet warrior people that just want to argue for the sake of argument, or even ones maybe they're confused and they've been like indoctrinated to feel some sort of lack of self-worth, and they're falling for the traps of the mainstream society to make them feel okay, they're not don't have the ability to be smart or to be creative or to be beautiful just in themselves. Like they just, I don't know, it's weird for me because I really I do my own thing. I'm artistic. Try to get my own income. I don't want a 9 to 5. I want to be my own boss and all that sort of stuff. I'm not driving a Ferrari or anything like that, but I don't see that as a goal, really. Maybe when I was in my teenagers and stuff and in my 20s, but just I feel way more connection with Earth and the traditional cultures of Fiji, and the way that they live over there. Even in Australia, traditional Indigenous Australians, they live off the land. Just, I don't know, it's weird for me because I've done a tertiary study as well, and just the whole way that, I mean, a lot of people say education is the key to get out of it, but I think you have to be very strong. You have to be very strong, right, and stand up, because you're going to have so many things knocking you out, trying to conform you into the way. The boss telling you what to do, your teacher telling you what to do, the TV trying to conform you into something, music. So,
yeah, Ronald can click the link. I agree with you, Sunray. Yin and Yang said, somebody asked, have I ever had to raise my children alone? Well, you guys know I was married and now I'm with Mr. So yes, there was a period of time where I was single, and I did. And I've spoken a lot on this channel about, especially for, I've not had to deal with obviously a lot of the struggles many women had to deal with. For example, when I was single, I took my youngest to my office with me. I also, had a different type of job. So I managed portfolios. And so I was able to take my children to properties with me. I had a nanny. So like my situation was obviously very different. But I have talked about how women with lower incomes can make it work, because I've worked with a lot. When I tell you guys I'm very pro woman, I've worked with a lot of low income women in my work, right, which I manage real estate portfolios and a lot of SROs. There were a lot of single mothers in those buildings, and I've helped lots of women navigate how to manage their families and bring in an income. So I have a lot of real world solutions. And I've talked about them on this channel. Yin
Can
and yang. Go ahead.
I was a 16-year-old mother, okay, and my son's 25 years old now. Graduated from college. I love him to death. He's a beautiful human being, a functioning member of society. But I raised him alone, and it was very, very hard getting through high school and college. There were times where I had to decide between bus fare and food. So the struggle is real. Um, I would have loved to have his father help me with that, but he didn't, and he wasn't. So since I'm there, I have to do it, and it is my responsibility to make sure that I raise a good human being. So I take that responsibility very seriously, and most single mothers, they do. For the most part, they do. You do have some that are trifling. Can't get away from that. And it is very much, just as much as his fault for him not being there, because he does need a father. He did need a father. And it is sad that he didn't know who he is. But at the same time, when I was raising my son, I couldn't let that be my primary focus. I had things to do. I had to do what I had to do.
Yeah, I think that's super on point. Yin Yang said, and this kind of ties into what you were saying, how is it a woman's fault when it takes two parents to raise a child? The parent who is absent, it's that parent's fault. Okay. And I think this is what I mean as the problem. For me, because I believe in male leadership, I think men are the most culpable in these situations because they should be over and protecting women and children. So I think the men are most culpable. But I don't think the parent who is present every single day with the child has no accountability for how that child turns out. That's just, to me, and that's nothing for you, yin yang. It's just ridiculous. Like if you're there with the child every single day, even if you have two parents in the home and you're the primary caregiver of a child, the person who has the most impact on how children turn out is the person that's there all the time. I also want to say, like, this also moves beyond money, right? This is about cultivating a person's personality. And so you might have to, and you guys, I make everything from scratch. I'm very frugal with food. Like I could help you guys stretch those dollars, right? Really honestly, I could. But out outside of that, and I also have an excellent plan for like babysitting and taking advantage of some of, for those of you who are able to deal with like state systems, how you can tag team like with another mother to bring income into both of your homes, and allow you guys to homeschool and kind of make a better life. So when I say that I've helped women with real world solutions with these things for many years, like prior to YouTube, I definitely did. And it is possible, but it's something no woman should have to navigate. And I'm not saying that, but women are not infallible. If you are in a home with a child and you are their primary caregiver, you cannot say that you have no responsibility in how that child turns out. That is just ridiculous. You have so much impact on how that child turns out. You are the person they see, the person they look up to, the person they idolize. If you're a parent, you know your kid basically idolizes you until they're a teenager. Some of them keep on idolizing you, depending on the type of parent you are. So you do have a hand in that. It's not 100% the father's fault. But I do hold men more accountable because they are at the top of the totem pole, right? So the person at the top holds the biggest responsibility, but that doesn't absolve mothers of their responsibility. I think we need to be real careful with that. And the reason is because how will we do better as women if we think there's nowhere we can improve? How will we do better as mothers if we think there's nowhere we can improve? EJ, mute me in your background and then you can talk. Like wherever you're listening to me, turn that down and then unmute yourself. If you can hear what I'm saying. EJ?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh wait, but turn Are you
Are
listening
you
to us?
listening to us? Yeah. Let me
Yeah,
see.
turn
Yeah,
that
turn
down.
that
Okay.
down. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say first and foremost, good evening. I just wanted to touch on your point, and I agree with you. This was one of the things that I was talking to with my teenage daughter about young females or women, not having any accountability for anything. Um, just to touch on the bonnet part. Okay, so we all know that as women, we wear bonnets to bed. We wear bonnets when our hair isn't done. Now, if we were going on a date or something like this here, we would make sure that we didn't have on a bonnet. So why are we using that as an excuse? What it is we don't want to be told anything. And it's especially from another older black female, when this female should be someone who we revere because she is older. So I just wanted to let you know that I mean, I agree with you on that point, and that's something that we need to work on as black women is having some form of accountability because we're not right in anything, in everything that we do, and we shouldn't always have an excuse, and it shouldn't always be a pushback on something that we know is wrong.
Right. I agree. Five said no. Black women are the most responsible because they are the first teachers of children, the most powerful humans in third dimension. Mitochondrial Eve. No, no, we're not the most responsible. We're not. Not unless men are beneath us. Not unless men are beneath us. If men are beneath us, then black women are the most responsible. If men are beneath women, then we are the most responsible. But as long as men are over women, they are most responsible. The person at the top of the food chain holds the most responsibility. And I know people hate when I make this because they think I'm making women like children, and I'm not. I'm just illustrating a point that's undeniable. My children make their own choices, right? But I'm going to give you guys a perfect example. I went biking with my children the other day, okay? And we biked all the way to the lake. We had a picnic at the lake. And on the way back, my little one, he knows the route through the forest. So we have a forest. We live by a forest. And there's a path so people can bike on it. He knows the route so well and he's so confident. He started to bike off like a crazy person ahead of all of us. But I'm pulling a trailer with like a picnic basket with like real dishes and tons of food in it. And I can't bike as fast as he can. So he went too far. And he's responsible for going too far because he knows he's not supposed to bike past where I can see him, especially in a forest where anybody can literally just pop out the trees and grab him, right? But I'm responsible ultimately. Had somebody grabbed him, who has the biggest responsibility? Me as the parent. Does that mean that he's not responsible for breaking the rule? No. But at the end of the day, I hold the ultimate responsibility because I'm the ultimate authority in that situation. So, why do I make that comparison? Not because women are children, because ultimately it's the authority. If you have a manager of a store and the people at the registers are robbing the store blind, they are responsible for their thievery, but the manager is responsible for the people underneath him. And so, just it really bothers me when men try to back off of their responsibility. I don't envy the fact that you guys ultimately are the most responsible because you're at the top of the food chain. I don't envy it. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I'm glad I'm a woman. But nah, we're not going to act like I said, unless there's something going on in the hierarchy I don't know about and men are wanting to be in subjugation, to women, then men have to stand by that. You have to stand by your position, which is over women and children, which means that when it goes south, the person who's most responsible is the man. When a man and a woman come together and that woman doesn't have self-respect, the person who's most responsible is the man, right? Because you should always be the cooler head. When a family goes awry and falls apart, when a woman is not moving the way she needs to move with your kids, the most responsible party is the man. Does that absolve the woman of responsibility? I'm clearly saying absolutely not. Women are not infallible. She's still responsible. But no, the leader is the most responsible, unless the argument is that men are not leaders. So just we need to be careful, with this mess.
Irene,
Yeah.
for all the wonderfulness that my son is, him not having a father in his life, you can tell because it does reflect. And every child raised by a single parent is not, it doesn't necessarily turn out to be a burden on society. But there is a lacking there. There is an absence that is seen and felt from that person. And that's never going to go away because they never got to know or have a relationship with that absentee parent. So it's very much the man's at the top, like you said. It is very much their responsibility, and that should not ever be taken away from them, because once again, it's just making them unaccountable for not being there and placing the blame solely on the shoulders of the woman. It and it's not. Yes, but like you said, I agree. The parents that's there, if you're there in the house and that's your child and you're raising them, you should do everything responsibly, culpable to make sure you do that. But that does not absolve the father from what he needs to do as well, because as that child grows up, they're going to always have that emptiness, whether they are successful in society or not.
Oh my gosh. I agree with you. Ronald Reggio said, family court has replaced fathers. Yo, not in the Black community, they haven't. Because let me tell you something. 60% of kids have never seen a family court. Okay. Nobody's getting child support for them. Family court has not replaced fathers. And the majority of people who do get into family court are not Black. And the Black people who do get into family court normally do so because they're in poverty. Okay. They're in poverty and there's an absent parent. And when the woman has to get social services, it's mandatory that they try to find the father to help with his kid. That's a requirement. So let's not play the game. Like, most Black people are in poverty. Family court has nothing to do with our community. There's very few Black people out here. Okay, you guys like to live vicariously through Black people with money when most of our people don't have money. There's very few Black people out here who are dragging anybody into family court for anything because, number one, they can't afford a lawyer. Number two, you don't got nothing to take. So let's not get out of white MGTOW spaces. Their problems are not your problems. Okay, when they're averaging mid six figures on average and they're making up the majority of the population with money, their problems are not your problems. Sometimes we have conversations about alimony and child support and all this stuff in the Black community. It's like your child support is $50 on average. I think it's actually 40 something dollars on average. So let's just not, right? Let's not do that. Now, I believe women are not infallible, but we're also, we're not going to, oh my gosh, we're not going to play the game like things are applicable to this situation that are not applicable. Like I said, men, you guys invalidate, just like I told the women, they invalidate their arguments by acting like we're infallible. You invalidate your arguments by saying stupid things. Like, seriously. That makes women not want to take you seriously. That makes women not want to give leeway. Women are stubborn. You come talking stupid stuff that doesn't make sense when these women are out here knowing they're not getting help raising these babies. They're not going to be trying to hear you. Because the reality is that 50% of Black women are raising children alone. 50% of households with Black children in them, almost 50%, are raising those children alone as women. And they are not, a lot of them, most of them, getting regular income to help raise those children and regular support from the fathers. That's the reality. So when you come in here and talk about family court replacing a father, you sound crazy out here to the women who are living that reality. So, don't make stupid arguments. It doesn't help. It doesn't progress the conversation. It really doesn't. You can come up, Ronald,
Hey,
if
Irene,
you
how
need
you
to come
doing?
up. Hi, Mark. You've been so patient.
Okay. How you doing, Irene?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, can I talk on? Can I speak on a point of the conversation that I think you carried on and for some time? I think you've touched on the infrastructure of America and how Black people could make a impact to in America, and I I see that we typically, in Black America, we don't take the conversation that far in terms of making change and um, social change and the image of how collectively how people see other nations, other people see Black people in itself. But I've noticed that the thing I'm not saying that you miss, but it, even when you have these conversations, it appears that you don't come back to, or you do, but at times, but a lot of times, I don't think that we can progress to that conversation because a lot of times our families aren't put together. So, I mean, I think you've talked about this a bit at the time where you said, look, you have children. I forget how many children, but you're married. That's one thing I do know that you're married, right? And I think you see the importance of your kid being seeing that you're married to, I believe, a Black man. And I don't think that they're going to grow up and not understand the importance of making change, in America, uh, from um, I would say a higher standpoint or opinion that you've been talking about. For example, your husband. I believe he's making change um, in certain institutions to help outreach to children, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of that teaching comes from the home, and if our home is broken, we can never get to that point where we mature to get to that conversation. So it's all about Black men and Black women getting together and understanding how to work with each other to even get to that conversation. I think that's way. I'm not saying that we can't have the conversation, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be put into place before we really start making major impact. If I'm off, let me know.
Say the last part of just like the last sentence you said before you said, if I'm off, let me know.
I said
Or if you're off about what?
if
About everything you
I
just
said
said?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I have a point, just let me know. If I'm off, just let me know. I'm just saying is that I think we got to get the family together, understand how we work. Is that the statistics that you just brought up
No,
shows why.
CD Vision, I was listening, but he said, if I'm off, let me know. But he said a lot of things. So I was asking him to specify if he's off about what point. The entirety of what he's saying, the last thing
Yeah,
that he said.
mm, just the entirety of what I said. If there's anything that I'm off on, just let me know because the stats that you threw off or um, spoke about in terms of the CDC. I mean, that's you said that out of your own mouth. That's not something that we should be happy about.
Yeah.
And that this is stemming from the home. And
Yeah.
you have these conversations on your chat, and it shows the results of what's been stemming from the home. You see, your children. I don't think your children is really going to experience what a lot of other parents. I mean, you're very wise in in certain aspects a lot of aspects of life in terms of of what you would how you would see a young male, a young female, how she should act, walk. A lot of these young women don't know know that you're talking over their head. You're talking like astrophysics in terms of morality and structure. And when I hear
Mm,
you have, it's like I don't think that they really like. How much do you like when you have these conversations? How much do you honestly think the your audience really understand when it comes from like a 50%, 60%? Like truly understand when you're having these conversations. It's about infrastructurally changing the perception and what that takes. And I think a lot of people miss the point.
I think a lot of people have desire for a lot of the things that are discussed here. I think having that articulated, I think getting solutions to create that, and I think self-accountability comes a long way on all sides, right? For our men and our women. Now, how much is absorbed? I think it just depends on the person. I think some people will absorb nothing because they have a narrative in their mind and that's what they're focused on. I think some people are already there. I think other people absorb what they can, right? People hear things that are relevant to the space they're in now, right? And I've definitely had people listen and then there were things they agreed with or disagreed with and then stepped away and then came back and were like, upon my second time listening to this is what I picked up. Just like any of us, right? Just like any of us, we could sit down, any of us, you or I inclusive, and hear something and everything not resonate. Maybe the only things that are going to resonate are the things that hit home. So it just depends. But honestly, at its core, I think a lot of this is not rocket science. At its core, women know that they are not built to carry a lot of the burden that they're carrying, specifically talking about, because a lot of what you said was surrounding like family and rebuilding those structures and things like that, and thinking that it started from there. Women know this. Even if they thought they were built for it, in the moment, when you're overwhelmed because it's beyond what you were designed to do, you recognize that you're overwhelmed. But sometimes you're so caught up in the survival of the thing that you can't pick apart how it could be better. You just know, like, this is overwhelming. I need help. Right. And so I think even men, I'm not a man, but I would imagine the same way as for women, we know that something's innately wrong, that a man needs to be there, that we need help, that like there are things that we're doing that are really beyond us and are really stretching our person. I, 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 the men that I've talked to, let's say specifically the men, let's say that I featured in my leadership series, because you'll hear them all say it. They are built for leadership, right? They know that's something that they're supposed to be doing. But only speaking of what men have told me, some men embrace that and run it at full throttle, and other men feel overwhelmed by it. It's a burden to them to know that they might have to be responsible for the livelihood of like other people, that if everything falls apart, it's going to be their fault. They don't want that responsibility. I've heard men say it both ways. I've heard some men just run like at the wall, like it was in me and I was like, I'm going to do it. And other men be like, I don't want this. I don't want this responsibility. I don't want to feel this. I don't want all this burden on my shoulder. I don't want to feel some kind of way if I fail and then I have a wife and children at home and they're hungry. You know, I don't want to feel the burden of wondering, like, is everybody going to have shoes? Is everybody going to have clothes? Is everybody have a roof over their head? Can I meet everybody's, emotional and physical needs? That is a huge responsibility. So I think some of it isn't about if I say it and they understand it. I think for the most part, people have an idea, they're in tune with where they stand and how it affects them. But the thing is like coming out of yourself to say, I want to improve in those areas. Like, I know this is what it is. I want to relinquish my fear of like having a family. I want to relinquish my fear of being hurt. I want to relinquish my fear of turning over control and, me and my kids starving for the women, right? I want to relinquish, you know, maybe having full authority over everything that goes on in my home so that I don't have to carry the burden of the load. I think it's more about relinquishing the place we're at more than it is people comprehending the way things should be. I really don't think even the most twisted of people doesn't understand the way things should be.
Irene,
Yeah.
I want to address a comment that Melanated Vessel said.
Mm-hmm.
He said that has to be displayed and a willingness. My mom saved me by moving me from the ghetto. My cousins weren't as lucky. And I agree with her, and I'll give you a quick example. I used to be a home health care aid recruiter, and I worked with the senior citizens in placing assistance in their homes and for various areas of their house. And so at times there would be a very big age gap. So you'll have your senior citizen and you'll have a young nurse who is in her 20s, mid 20s, and she didn't necessarily know how to clean a home the way this older woman expects it to be clean. So that you had heads butting there. No one ever really showed the young lady how to properly clean a home or what to do to clean a home. And this older woman had to show her how to do that. The young lady was willing, this is the part, she was willing to learn and she was open to learning. Some people have to display that wherewithal to want to know better, to do better. Because once you know better, you do better. You can't help but to do better once you know better. And a lot of people are stuck in a mindset that is comfortable for them. They are comfortable in their a 4 block radius of their neighborhoods and they don't come out of it. And it's the only thing they have to do is have the wherewithal to step out of their comfort zone and want to know something different.
But I agree with that. Something that should be common, like Irene said, this is not rocket science, but the old saying, um, common sense isn't always common to people. So even though it's not rocket science, and it doesn't resonate to everyone, yeah, making a choice is it's good, but you have to then over. It seems like you have to jump over the hurdle of poverty, or not in terms of economically, but just not having either the mother or the father in the house, growing up without a father, or growing up without a mother, to see both sides. Like from I think from Irene's standpoint, like her kids, she I think they're going to be pretty wealthy in the terms of understanding what it takes to be successful and having that willingness and that drive. But let me ask you this though, Irene. Do you believe that a lot of these conversations, um, when you're talking about taking things, making change on the infrastructure side, infrastructurally within inside of America to make change, do you strongly agree that this takes um, starting with the family?
Yes, I definitely think like the biggest impact is what goes on in the home for sure. And I do agree to an extent that you need to see behaviors modeled in order to realize them, right? I think seeing behaviors modeled is really important. And somebody asked, have I ever lived in any ghetto? And no, I haven't. But there are some of my family that live in the country, and I think where they live would be considered the ghetto. So it's not like I've never been to a ghetto, but no, me personally, no, I've never lived in a ghetto. I've never had to spend an extended amount of time in a ghetto. I was talking to Mister about this. There are things that I was comfortable with when I was there. Like I liked, I'm old, so way, way back in the day, they used to give out like food stamps to people and they were like actual pieces of paper. And I remember like one of my aunts giving us that to go to the corner store to get candy. And at that store, they sold things like candy cigarettes, which I had never seen, and we'd buy them and pretend to smoke them. There was a lady that was very entrepreneurial. She sold, I'm pretty sure it was Kool-Aid, but frozen in styrofoam cups. And this was a very small part of my childhood. They're a family that if I went to the country, I got to see them, every few years. So it's not like I've never been, but I will say also I was very uncomfortable, right? I didn't like sitting down. I think I have a phobia of mini bugs from being in that environment. I would go and I'd stand. And even though I loved my family and I loved my aunt, I never felt comfortable sitting. I'd never eat anything inside the house um, because I wasn't used to it. So no, but so I do understand like there's a mentality and a way that we can get comfortable. And I think that's also too like it goes back to speaking to how we make, choices for how we raise our children and just not allowing ourselves or our children to get comfortable with some sort of things, like whatever your life is, you have to make the best of it possible. You have to still, I was watching a documentary about people who really lived like a real slum outside of America with like dirt floors and stuff. And the interviewer said something and it was offensive to me, but then it like really hit home. He said, they are amazingly clean to not have running water and dirt floors. Like this woman made sure that her children and their clothing and her home was as clean as possible without running water and with dirt floors. And she made it the absolute best it could be. And she still kept their integrity about them. She still made sure that they were educated. She did everything that she could to provide the best life possible in the environment they were in. And again, no woman should ever be in that position. I strongly believe that. However, life is not perfect. And so we do have to make the best out of the situations we're given. And I know a lot of people are going to say, because I've seen it in the chat, that's easy to say if you didn't have to live in that situation. But money does not make everything perfect, right? And I think that is something that really needs to be said. So yeah, some things have to be modeled in the home, but there were a lot of things. Some of you guys know my history. I grew up with money, but I didn't grow up safe as a child. So children being safe was not modeled in my home, but every child in my home is safe, right?
I like to touch on that topic, Miss
Go
Irene.
ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, I
go
was
ahead.
gonna
And
touch
I'm
on
so
that
sorry
topic.
because you've been so patient, but go ahead,
Oh,
Geraldine. Is that how you say your
Hello,
name, Geraldine?
Geraldine. Yes.
Geraldine? Okay, go ahead.
And hello, all of you. Hello, chat. I usually don't get up on YouTube to speak about anything. I support you already, Miss Irene. I just came in. I just subscribed. I also want to shout out Miss Cynthia. I am subscribed to her just as well as Eloho, Chioma, Paris, all of them. So I'm coming from a good group where I want to go ahead and put my good opinion out there. And this is not to, let me go ahead and make a disclaimer. This is not to shame. This is not to judge my good women of color, specifically non-ambiguous Black women. I am a non-ambiguous Black woman, 22 years old. Just now started my life. Both parents raised me married. But I also come from a past of being with the cousins that were less fortunate, due to the fact that I know that a lot of people will sit up here like, she's silver spoon fed. Oh yes, oh yes. But I would like to say I ate from that plastic spoon with my cousins. I ate from that plastic spoon. I ate from that plastic fork. I sat up there with a family who didn't judge each other until it turned into one person needs money. One person needs some real help. One person needs a word of prayer. And one thing I will say is I make 2 points: morals and maturity. I'm not about to bash anybody from where they come from, but I will say this: as Black women and Black men, no matter what you wear, no matter how you go out that house, always represent yourself the best way you know how, because no one's going to represent you but you. I would like to make this statement, and I'm about to drag Miss what's the name? Did he come up on the chat yet? Oh, Mr. Roro, Miss Roro, you still haven't found the live yet. You still haven't found the chat. I don't need you to make any more points if you still are not up on this chat. At the end of the day, in my opinion, I love us so much that I am willing to speak for us. This is coming from someone that is so young that has seen all of the struggle that we have gone through, but still keeping a happy childhood no matter what. I have made sacrifices for my cousins because I love them so much. I just had one to pass recently. But as far as Black fathers in the home, it's getting to a problem. But you know what I believe it is? We have to stop. We have to stop perpetuating a dusty mentality culture. This is not just to men, because I know we like to put men on the front line when we say dusty. It's dusty mentality, y'all. That's what I feel it really is. We are uplifting a culture that is not to be represented, not in a good way. It saddens me. And when I jump up on the chat, when I get in front of, I don't know, an executive and speak how I speak, people will assume that I came out of a great neighborhood. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, y'all. So my city is not the best of the best. So I'm letting you all know there's still hope. We're going to get past it, but it really does take us to hold each other hand. And I'm talking about firmly grasp, squeeze it, because we have to get to a better future than what we're doing now. I can't be sitting up here watching my cousins, my friends, my family, young as me, still going through the motions of having to live a single parent home. And sometimes that is for fathers too. I'm not gonna go ahead and bring fathers in as if they're doing the best, but I'm just saying there's more than just the Black woman. But I'm also gonna say it does take that Black man to step up. And it also takes us Black women to step up with how we appear outside of here. Y'all, I used to work at a skate rink for $7.50. And I'm going to go ahead and get off of here, y'all, because I'm going to have to go. I used to work for a skate rink for $7.50. Yes, under minimum wage. Y'all, I went back to the skating rink just giving the best me. They still know who I am. They still see that I'm carrying myself as a great young woman. But we still have our people out here. Yes, the bonnets. The bonnets, y'all, it is meant to me for in the house. I'm not going to sit up here and judge you. I love you. But I do want to see Black women looking our best when we step out the door. I understand if your hair wasn't done that day. I do understand that. But it can't be every other day thing. It can't. I want to see you look beautiful. I compliment Black women, and they don't get that often. I'm going to compliment you. I'm going to give you a word of encouragement for the day. But that's all I would like to say. And thank y'all so much.
Thank you for coming up. I appreciate it. And thank you for subscribing.
Thank you.
I want to talk what Melanie Vessel said. She said, Irene, it's sort of like a white person telling us about the experience we have because they don't know the facts. Irene, you know, I love and support you. I'm not trying to offend you. Okay, so I'm going to say this. I don't know that I'm offended, but I really, it's not like a white person. I'm not white. It's not like a white person at all. It's literally nothing like that. I'm still Black. I don't have to grow up in the ghetto. Now I may not understand being poor, but that doesn't mean I don't understand being Black because I'm Black. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing. It's nothing like a white person. It's literally nothing like that, right? My more money didn't suddenly make me not Black. I'm still Black. And more importantly, I'm Gullah Geechee, so many of my family members live in poverty. In fact, the only part of my family that doesn't live in poverty are the people that left the country. Those that moved into California, into New York, into major metropolitan areas. They got educated and they have money. My family that lives in the country range from people that live in the ghetto to people who own stores. It's a range, right? But they're country folk. I've had two uncles that were murdered, just shot and killed. So I'm still Black. I'm not detached from the Black experience because I grew up upper middle class. It doesn't suddenly make me like a white person. So I don't think it's anywhere near the same. I don't think it's like a white person coming and saying anything because I'm not white. I'm a Black woman. I'm Black. I'm a woman. I'm still Black. And I think a lot of Black people get money and think they're suddenly not going to be Black and get a rude awakening when it turns out they're Black. I'm a Black person who's literally been walking, I've said this, walking around the store with a $700 stroller and still had people follow me around. I'm like, wait, are you following me around? Like, this is a $2,000 purse and a $700 stroller. Clearly, I can buy whatever's in your little store. I think I was like in Ross at that. I wasn't even in like a nice store. I was like at Ross getting like feather pillows. And I distinctly remember it. So it's not like I suddenly became a white person because I'm not poor. I think we want to be really careful with that. So I hear what you're saying, Melanated, but I have to emphatically disagree. Like money doesn't suddenly make I'm not a billionaire. Okay. I'm not a multimillionaire where I'm so far removed from like anything that's black. I'm upper middle class. Many of us are upper middle class. Many of us, more of us live in poverty, but I'm not detached from the black experience as much as a whole white person. Come on now. Like we can't do that. We can't do that out here. I just said I visited my family in the country and they had food stamps. Now, I had never seen a food stamp until I visited my aunt, until I was old enough to fly out there and visit her by myself. But that doesn't mean clearly if all that takes is exposure to that life, then I know that life too. But we're not going to say it's like being white because that's what it's definitely not. It's definitely not like being white. There's not that big of a gulf between black people with a little money and black people in the ghetto. Trust me, that gulf is not that big.
But Irene, to that point that Melanated stated, I mean, that is what goes on in the black culture. That's a part of the black culture. If you don't come from the rags to riches type of mindset, you have no say so. And that's the point that I was meaning to say is that even though you come from upper middle class, that you say that I've seen Caucasians, Indians, it doesn't matter, Asians come from that same point where they've gone through struggles and they've gone backwards because they couldn't handle the stress or had undealt with dealt issues and trauma that they couldn't move forward. And it's like we don't have to get to a point where to listen to receive good information, it has to come from someone that went through the same exact struggles that you did to apply it to your life. I mean, if a fact is a fact of a matter, we can apply it to our life to do right. Why is it a way of passage to say, oh, it's like a hood mentality. You have to have your stripes to be able to talk to black folks, so we can understand. It's like it's not that, like you said, that gulf shouldn't be that far apart from each other to do well. And it goes back to like a survival mentality and thriving. It's like, how can we get past thriving? I think what's been specified here is the bonnets, but what should be accepted amongst black culture and what shouldn't be accepted amongst black culture, so we can keep moving. Do we honestly believe that we have a culture that's sustainable? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, in your struggles that you've gone through, I mean, I could have led you to prostitution, drugs, but it appears that you chose not to do that. So what made you say, hey man, I don't have to just necessarily survive for the survive and provide for my children, but I have to thrive to show them that they have to go above and beyond to make something of themselves in this world. What made you think that way, and what kept you on the course to do that? Because I think that's where black folks we need to understand and see, rather than saying, okay, well, just to get by, we have music and hip hop songs just saying just to get by rather than thriving, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Can I
Um,
add?
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Octavia.
I just want to add, and then I'm gonna have to get off the chat. First thing is we have to understand. I know we've all come across people who've had a 10th grade education but can talk circles around any person with a degree. We it it's not so much about your degrees or where you come from, because there are people that live in the inner city or ghetto, if you want to put it that way, with more sense than the president of the United States. Um, and it's not about the bonnets. Let's kill this bonnet conversation, because I have met people whose whole appearance is an entire meme, but ended up being the most beautiful person you ever want to have on your team. We have to um, understand that everybody has a place within our community, whether good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent. And we should set a standard of how we would like to be projected in society. I agree, yes. And nobody is infallible. We have to take responsibilities for ourselves. But I want us to not be so critical or so hardline on a specific stance that we miss the opportunity of having those persons add some value to our lives in some way.
I think that's really valid. And also, Melanated said it was more about how the experience feels. And I definitely agree with that. If you don't live it every day, you definitely can't know what that's like. I can't disagree with that. But Ryan Park, you crack me up. I can't stand you. Middle class equals reduced late. Reduce late what? Upper middle pay full price for lunch. Poor free lunch. Oh, they get reduced lunch. Okay. Poor get free lunch if thinking what parents pay for kids in school. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what it is, right? But anyway, I'm gonna get off of here, but I just wanted to talk to you guys. Like I said, it's not the bonnet shawl. It's not. It's like the bigger issue. And I guess my bigger thing is we have to be open. Now, I'm going to say women because I'm talking to the women today. But remember, when I titled a video, Our Black Men a Lost Cause, and we went in, the women were with it. Okay. But everybody gets it over here. So my only point is that for the women, we are not infallible. We're not above correction. Everything we do is not perfect and right. It's not like any of us don't have room for improvement. I saw some comments in the chat that were referring to mothers that did everything they could. We don't know if that person did everything they could. I'm gonna tell you, as a mother right now, I'm I've sewn my kids' clothes. I've like made them clothes. I'm looking at a table with like blueberry and strawberry muffins, oatmeal, apple cookies, and fresh baked white bread and homemade crackers sitting on my table right now. I homeschool. I just biked freaking damn near 10 miles back and forth and then handmade everything down to the flippin' mayonnaise for these kids to eat lunch at the park and then pulled it all there. And I can tell you right now, even though I talk to my kids, I'm about to get off of here, play chess with my 6-year-old who can't play chess to save his life, but he really likes playing chess. And then I'm going to probably spend another 45 minutes pretending to eat his wooden food from his hibachi set. And I can tell you right now, having been a mother for, I think my eldest is going to be 27. I can't remember. Y'all, I've lost track. That I have not done everything I could do. That there are definitely times and things I've done where I just wish I would have made a better decision. That I'm not anywhere close to the best mother, that there are a million places I drop the ball, that on a daily basis, I can think about a reaction I had or somebody I didn't feel like talking to or some game I didn't want to play or something that was important to my kids, but honestly, I just want to be left alone, that I did not give them that. Of some message that I wish I would have gotten through sooner. Something. And a lot of people would look at me and be like, damn, she's doing everything the most. I could never, I don't have the time, I don't have the space. Right. And I know for a fact, I've not been infallible as a mother. For a fact. Like in the past 24 hours, I haven't been. So this idea that these parents did everything they could and did the best they could, that's not true. None of us does the best we can. A lot of us try hard. Sometimes it's hard to, even as a mother, it's hard to be consistently on point because eventually you get tired. Sometimes you're a human being. Sometimes you don't even bother. Sometimes you want to go pee and not have somebody knock on the door, you know? Sometimes you lose your temper. Sometimes you're like, I could throw a kid out the window. Like, this is a possibility today. So to pretend like we've done everything we can, or the mom that did everything she could and her kid still, you don't know. You don't know. Having sisters, I have a younger sister. One of my sisters can't have children and one can. I'm an aunt. She and I have had real conversations. Me and my female friends have had real conversations about motherhood. And as a mother who loves women and who has open conversations with other mothers, it's bullcrap that we move infallibly and that we just are doing the best we can. We can all do better. Sometimes you don't want to do your best. Sometimes you just want to be left the hell alone. Sometimes you just need a freaking break. It's not about your best. It's about I'm a human being. And that's the reality. And the reality on top of that is some of us drop the ball more than others. Because honestly, for a lot of women, and I've had to talk a lot of younger women off the ledge, raising children is a burden. It is a burden, especially when you don't have somebody that's actively helping you. Keeping that motivation to constantly put yourself aside for another human being, constantly put yourself to the side for another human being means that you will not be infallible. And some people, it's more than they can take. It's too much of other people being their children and not enough of them. And that's just one area. Same thing with relationships. None of us is walking around here and we've never gone an entire week or month and just been in a funky mood. Just not been the best. Just rather have the argument than just lay down our sword because I'm tight. So this is what I'm saying. We aren't infallible in this. We can be corrected. Some of us knew we should throw our hair in a ponytail, but we just don't care. I just don't care. Some of us knew we should have made this choice, but I just chose to make the other choice. It's not about what I know. It's about what I felt like doing today. And that's just keeping it real because we're people. But if we can't have a conversation where we can be 110% honest, 2000% honest about the fact that as women, we're not infallible. Yes, I was creating a problem because you hurt me, Negro. Because I was faithful to you and you were a whore. Because I've been taking care of this kid for the past 12 months and you just want to roll up out the blue and take her to go get ice cream? You just want to roll up out the blue and ask for him to spend the night? I don't even know where you are. I haven't even seen you in a year and a half. No, you can't see your son. We know that many people have done this. We might have been that person and felt justified in our movements. But to act like we have zero to do with it, that we're just infallible and nobody can say anything to us, and we are just the moving picture of perfection out here, and everybody around us is just screwing us over and nobody can hold us to a standard because we're already downtrodden enough, we're already having to do enough. That is simply not the truth. If we're going to have an honest conversation and we can drag other people to task when it comes to their wrongs and the dog pile that is our community, surely we can be honest about the fact that we as women are not infallible. And we know that it's bad when you have, like I said, women on this platform, such as Eloho, such as Sin, such as so many of the women that you guys I know are subscribed to, who support Black women fully. But then we want to get tight because they say, look, a bonnet is for the house. Now you could do what you want to do, but for us to sit out here and pretend like that's like a whole look and we're just going to go live our whole day and no stigma should be attached to that, it's some BS. And then we want to be in the comment section acting like somebody offended us because how dare you hold us to a standard? We're already, it's like, no, it's bigger than the bonnet. It's about the fact that nobody can hold you to a standard about anything. Anybody who says anything, and this is not all of us, but we know that for some of us, anybody who holds us to any standard, we refuse. No, I'm not responsible in any way, shape, or form for how my kids turn out if the father's not there. No, I'm not responsible in any way, shape, or form for if a relationship doesn't work. No, I'm not responsible in any way, shape, or form for how I carry myself because the world is judging me anyway. Because the men are trash anyway. Because society is on my neck anyway. I have zero responsibility. And that is just not a stance. Right? That is just not a stance for us to take. We are not infallible. We are not above correction. Everything about us is not perfect. There are areas we can improve. We do have some accountability. We can say all those things and never, ever even move on the other things that we say that are correct. You still need to take care of your kids and be in the home. You still need not to expect vagina from me, but then be mad if I have a baby. You still should not have the expectation that I pump myself full of drugs so that you can choose or not choose to wear a condom. I have to have cow hormones and synthetic hormones in me so that you can choose or not choose to wear a condom. I have to pry my cervix open so you can choose to not choose to have a condom. You can still say, I had to struggle and raise this boy on my own. And if he didn't know how to be a man, it's because there's no way I could ever teach him because where were you? And still admit that some of the brokenness of that child is due to where you did not fully commit. You can still say society won't care if I make myself the most beautiful Black woman out here. Because at the end of the day, all they're going to see is unambiguously Black to be disrespected. And we can still say that doesn't mean we can't have a standard for how we carry ourselves in public. Like you can do both things. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is a possibility. We don't have to be perfect or infallible to call other people out on their BS. We don't have to be the picture of perfection for us to be able to say that you are screwed up and wrong. We seem to think the only way that we can protect our stance is to refuse to admit that we are wrong in any point. But what we do is we invalidate our points. Sometimes the most jacked up, screwed up, backwards people can still make a good point. And what I'm going to say is, you know what? You're right about that, but you're still not shit. You're right. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. You're right. I could do better there. But that doesn't make you anything. That doesn't make you a good person. Look, a broken clock is wrong, is right twice a day. A broken clock is right twice a day too. You are not invalidating me by pointing out something that may be true. I don't have to pretend like there's nothing wrong with me out of fear that if you get one thing correct, it invalidates every point I've made. And I think if we realize that as Black women, we won't make moves around here like we're infallible and jump on the neck of anybody, even people who are allied to us as Black women. We won't feel like jumping down their throats every time they say anything corrective to us. Anybody who loves you will stand to your defense, but they will also not watch you self-destruct or be corrupt. They will correct you. Love is not just about telling you you are amazing. Love is not just about telling you you're a queen and you're magical and you're a glowing unicorn on, a cloud somewhere. Love is also correction. Love is also honesty. People who don't love you will allow you to be the most trifling, screwed up, backward person because your betterment is not their focus. People who don't love you feed you candy all the time. They never want to give you meat. They never want to give you vegetables. They just feed you candy all the time. And it may feel good to be in spaces where all that's ever said to you is that you're awesome. But at some point, you need somebody to say, but you can tighten that up. Because at the end of the day, The goal is that you and I be our best selves, not that we be freaking delusional, because you cannot be woke in a delusion. That is not a thing. I'll talk to you guys later.